So while they're getting set up, I'll make the introductions so that we can get the most out of their time, their valuable time. This next section, or session rather, is described as a big picture look at IoT 10 years in the future. Your moderator is David Michaels, Principal Analyst of Talking Points. And David Michaels.
Welcome. We're going to be talking about the future of IoT. I've got a very distinguished panel here that I offered to introduce, but they said, no, we'll do it ourselves. So with that, why don't we go ahead and start with Scott. Scott, if you can introduce yourself and pass the mic down.
Sure, my name is Scott Amyx, and I run a consultancy called Amyx Plus, and I am an IoT futurist, an IBM IoT futurist, and work with European Commission, United Nations, and corporations.
Hi, my name is Said Ismet. I'm the Philips Hue R&D Director for Americas.
Hi, I'm Ishmael Malik, and I'm CEO and founder of Blockchain Lab.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Abrams, and I lead Enterprise IoT for Samsung.
Hello, I'm Gaia Dempsey. I'm the co-founder of a company called DAQRI. We make augmented reality rugged wearable devices and head-up displays for cars, and we see augmented reality as the user interface for the Internet of Things.
Hi, my name is Kumar Srivastava. I lead the product team at the BNY Mellon Innovation Center in Palo Alto.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to, 10 years is a long time, and IoT is pretty liquid right now. So we're going to go in a whole bunch of different directions here. I thought we would start off with one of the more recent attention-grabbing things, which is speech interfaces. There's been a lot of excitement around the Amazon device. We've got Microsoft Cortana, we've got Google Home, Google Assistant. People are very excited about this. What I thought was really interesting yesterday at Google I/O is they announced that Google Assistant you can now type to. To me, that's a big improvement. I don't want to always talk to this thing. I want to type. So my question to the panel is how important is speech going to be in the long run? Are keyboards going to go away? Is speech going to? Are we at the peak of speech hype? Let's start off with Ed.
It's a great question to start. Is speech going to go away? God, I hope not, because I won't be able to communicate. Are keyboards going away? Absolutely not. What you're going to continue to see is an integration of cognitive technologies with speech and other input technologies. All of these things have to become more natural for us as users, both as business people and consumers, and the technology will really drive in that direction over the next few years.
So at DAQRI, I can answer from our perspective. We really like to give the user options, and we really see it as a context-dependent decision that needs to be made in terms of how you create the interface. So we do enable speech control of our augmented reality interfaces in our wearable devices. One of the main reasons for that is you can picture somebody who's, for example, installing or repairing a cell tower or doing a task where they need to be wearing heavy gloves, and they're not going to be able to tap anything on their device or really tap into a keyboard. So we want to be able to give them a way that's hands-free to drive through the interface. The two main ways that we do that are through voice, number one, and through gaze-based control, number two. So where they actually are looking, where their eyes are going in the interface can actually help to drive through the AR as well. But we also provide the ability to connect to a Bluetooth keyboard. So there's some things where you're putting in a long Wi-Fi password. You don't want to skip on security in that case. You want to have the ability to type when you need it. So we enable that kind of connectivity. We really see the future being, it's a future where you need to design products that allow people different modalities of user input depending on what they're doing and what they need.
Anyone else?
Well, I think what I was going to say is in the next 10 years, you will be surprised as to what the HCI, the human-computer interfaces, are going to be. And it's going to be actually multimodal, which means that it's not only touch-based, gesture-based, as well as brain-computer interface, but it's also going to be geospatial and contextually aware, which means that in some cases there may be no traditional interface as we think about it. And this is exactly the reason why Informa is actually launching a new conference series called UX Next, which I will be advising on the content curation.
I think it comes down to the efficiency of human input to computer understanding. And so what happens is products or interfaces that are better suited to and can leverage a more efficient mechanism of capturing the user input and actually doing something with it will tend, the scenarios will tend to gravitate towards those interfaces. So speech will offer efficiency for a certain set of scenarios, but keyboards today are the most efficient way of telling a computer something to do, like programming or just users interacting with it. I think if speech can get to that point, and I'm sure it will, there will be certain scenarios where, if your hands are busy, for example, with something else, you want to talk to the machine, or any other scenario where you can leverage that efficiency, it'll work out over there.
I think from my side, from the consumer space, for sure, I agree with the remarks that consumers will need choice. So it will not, we've learned that actually throughout our journey, as Philips, you as well, there's not one user interface that's going to dominate everything. So you always need a choice. Sometimes things will be automated, connected to the internet with rule engines. Sometimes you will need your app, sometimes you will need a chatbot. But that all being said, I think we should also recognize that it has been quite a revolution in the UI part. Natural language processing improved by AI and machine learning for accuracy purposes. And then what you also see is that it's actually becoming an enabler also to move some of the, let's say, the adaptation, especially for example in smart home and smart devices, from really early innovators to the early majority because of its simplicity. I always give the personal example. My wife never downloads the apps, but she loves talking to Alexa or Google.
Okay. One of the things that I like and get frustrated by at the same time about the IoT conversation is how incredibly broad and diverse it is. It seems like you spend the first 5 minutes of every conversation just trying to agree on a perspective or a level or viewpoint of what we're talking about on the show floor here. You can see here in our panel we've got virtual reality or augmented reality as well. We've got blockchain. So many emerging technologies. I've heard 3D printing come up, and drones have come up. So a lot of emerging technologies are part of the IoT conversation. And so my question is, what are the emerging technologies today that are going to become not a periphery conversation, but a core conversation of IoT over the next 10 years? Who wants to take it?
I can start. So I feel it's going to be machine learning and AI that really makes you able to leverage the data being created from IoT and actually determine and decide what to do with a device that's bidirectionally connected. And so I feel it's anyways hard to deal with data in a manual sense. You need automation there. But IoT, and if you think about every device being connected, it will produce such tremendous amounts of data that you will need more intelligence in being able to decide. First of all, remove separate the noise from actual signals that are valuable, and then actually take action based on that. So I think that, I feel, is the biggest technology that's going to make or break IoT in general, is how you can leverage the data, and that you need more intelligence through machine learning and AI that really lets you do that.
So yesterday I spoke on the topic of quantum computing. And the reason I spoke on quantum computing is that it handles two of the key things that we're going to address here today, which is security. As IoT becomes more pervasive and you have things that's on the edge and is fully decentralized, the vulnerability from attacks as well as ransomware increases significantly. The risk to a corporate body and to the government bodies are huge as well. the way quantum computing starts to address some of those things is things like superposition, entanglement, and teleportation. Particularly the use of quantum cryptography for quantum key distribution that is frankly unhackable. And if somebody were to try to even decipher it, it would actually change the result, immediately resulting in people understanding there's a third party that's observing it. This is exactly the work that is currently occurring with the Chinese and the satellite system that they have in space for the next 2 years. So we think that the big movers is going to be quantum computation in terms of different types of computation, integer factorization using the Shor's algorithm, as well as the ability to be able to provide that cryptographic aspect. In terms of the plus 10 years out, the Internet of Things will start to shift away from IoT to Internet of Humans, where you may not like to hear this, but companies like Neuralink and Kernel are working hard to enable AI-based chips inside your brain. So which means that not only inanimate objects become connected, but your brain and all of us become connected to one another, and we become supercharged cyborgs. It is not something that you guys like to hear, but that is the direction we're going. And why are people going to adopt? Because of competitiveness.
You bring up an interesting point with quantum computing, because we tend to look at the technology in a linear way. These are going to get faster, cheaper, smarter, etc. But quantum computing is going to possibly disrupt pretty much all of our security mechanisms fairly quickly when it happens. We don't know when it's going to happen, but when it happens, it's going to be very disruptive. The WannaCry issue was all of a sudden every computer became vulnerable, right? Very quickly when the information was released. So is quantum computing going to just completely disrupt our IoT and change everything to lockdown?
So the answer is yes. Just like how traditional classical computers have produced OS level to applications and usage, there's going to be a fundamental shift in business models and organizations as a result of quantum computation. Just recently, we reached 10 entangled qubits. By end of this year, they're targeting 20. And in 10 years, they're going to reach about 100 entangled qubits, which is equivalent to 1 million times the capacity of computation today.
Ishmael, back to the emerging technologies. I have a feeling you have a different answer than AI and machine learning.
So from our side, it's more of a practical. We've got technologies, smart contracts. Some of you may be familiar with it, but essentially this is smart code that lives on the blockchain, on the chain itself. We see a future within 24 to 36 months. We've already experimented in the labs where if your doctor's records say you've become glucose intolerant, that smart code should be able to update your regular fridge that is ordering whether it be the milk, and then they can turn that off to be another type of milk. So going forward, we see the entire smart contract and deep learning actually evolving with your lifestyle in the background and pulling in data sets. So big data, AI, and deep learning sitting on smart codes autonomously. And then just to add, your voice in our blockchain becomes your third factor authentication. So every now and then you wake it up, you have a little talk with it, and that becomes your mnemonic password to actually release any payments into the blockchain.
So I'm going to take a slightly contrary view here. I think the question's wrong. I don't think we need to be looking at what technologies will lead or what technologies will disrupt. I think for IoT to truly take hold, to truly deliver value, we have to talk about the value propositions, the human interactions, the experiences, whether at the professional level or the personal level. That will drive the adoption of technology. The ability to work more intelligently in real time will drive a set of AR technologies. The ability to get the information that you need to do your job better will drive quantum computing capabilities. But the conversation around what technology in this room or not in this room is right or wrong, I think we're looking at it backwards, and we really have to stop thinking first about the gadgetry and shift that conversation into what challenge are we trying to solve for, what problem are we trying to address.
And I'll add to that. So I completely agree. I think it's a question of changing business practices, changing business models, evolving the culture, and evolving the way that we interact with the Internet of Things and with these new types of interfaces that are going to be created to facilitate those interactions. So 10 years from now, it's going to be very, very natural for all of us to think of our things as having kind of their own independent decision-making processes, their own AI logic that governs kind of what they can do. And one thing that I just kind of want to highlight is that as these different technologies come together, they are actually going to be accelerating one another, and they're going to be creating synergies and confluences that actually take us further than we can imagine right now. So one example of that is the way that AR and AI actually interact. So I completely agree that artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, kind of data mining activities are going to be a major bedrock of the Internet of Things in the future and the way that we interact with the Internet of Things. And augmented reality devices like the ones that my company makes, the DAQRI Smart Helmet, the DAQRI Smart Glasses, we also have the HUDs for cars, essentially mean that we have a window into what people look at in the course of their job or in the course of their life once we see these technologies evolving into the consumer space. And we're creating essentially databases of imagery that are going to enable the rapid acceleration of computer vision technologies. So if you're familiar with a little bit with how computer vision algorithms are developed, which is a subset of artificial intelligence, you really need to have a giant data set that you can train your algorithms on, or else you don't get very accurate results. And right now it's hard to do that because in some cases we don't have the database, we don't have enough of a large database to actually create an algorithm that can perform accurately. And so as we see the proliferation of devices and cameras and sensors on people and in things, those data sets are going to be created that are going to enable us to then create valuable insights, and those insights are going to change the way that we can interact with them, and they can interact with each other with some instructions from us.
Okay, it didn't take long to get to AI here. So since Ed attacked my question, let's go back to AI here. AI has been a continuous source of disappointment for what, 30, 40 years now. I look at a lot of these AI implementations and I say la-di-da, right? There's anybody who's called a call center where they have the speech recognition, why are you calling? And you say, you explain in detail why you're calling, and they say, did you say sardines? No. And so I find that AI is continuously measuring short. So my question is that truly going to change this time, or is it just going to be another 20, 30 years? And if it is going to change, why and how?
Yeah, I can pick that up. So I think Guy has started answering that actually already slowly, right? So I think I agree with you that for the last 10, 20 years, it has been in the universities, it has been in the labs, people were playing with it, organizations were playing with it. And then maybe there were some niche use cases, but the mass adaptation was not really happening. I think what is now IoT doing is that IoT is making that data that is needed for these hungry machines available. And then it's not only the amount of data, but it's also the diversity of data. So because now you start combining, for example, data from internet, from your smartphone usage to your smart devices in your home and so on, and then you're really getting at, let's say, dimensions where you can really drive insights that you would not be able to do maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So I think AOD, let's say the amount of data from the connected devices, the cloud technologies that are distributing that data, and combined with also now how we bring technology to market with a user experience focus, with UX focus, and what Ed also mentioned, not thinking about technology, but thinking about use cases, what kind of additional values we are bringing on. I think that's the one, in my opinion, that makes a difference there.
So right now, when we talk about AI, ML, deep learning neural networks, these fall within the weak artificial intelligence. I have just last week spoke with a company that's working on AGI or GAI, depending how you say it. It's basically the ability to actually resemble and replicate everything that humans do, from computer vision or sight to touch to the computation and logic to even movement, like Boston Dynamics. Will we reach AGI in its full capacity at a singularity level in the next 10 years? Probably not. However, there are some fundamental research that's being done so that we do move towards more closer AGI. Now, in terms of policy implication, what does this mean? We're of the philosophy that Internet of Things, or more broadly, the fourth industrial revolution that is encompassing automation and cyber systems, is really around how do you start to take autonomous or intelligent systems and combine it with human computation so that we improve and deliver innovation and productivity faster in a safe, risk-mitigated way.
So, yeah, one of the things I would urge you to look at is human-led AI, which on the blockchain we call it an oracle core. So you can go out, you can enhance your AI constantly, check it, see if it's going the right direction, if the decision's been made, and the third stage of blockchains will include Oracle calls as a standard API call where you can call in a crowdsourced set of humans that can give additive value as a constant stream on AI. So you're going to see a blended human deep learning AI net sort of residing on a blockchain within 3 years from now.
I think that, again, that's the key, right? The first 10 years, first 20 years of AI was focused on that voice interaction, voice recognition, right? Why? Because we didn't have the right data sets to really go deep and understand the cognitive aspects of what we're doing. Think about how many of you use a voice agent on your mobile device today. That voice agent has retrained you to speak the way it wants you to understand. We're at a point now where we're getting large enough data sets that AI agents can be cognitive, can respond and react to the way you speak, the way you interact. And that's the tipping point that will change, not in the next 10 years, but really within the next 18 months. And you'll see that point of frustration that we all have today about, no, I didn't say sardines, right? Really shift to an AI set of agents, both from a voice perspective, a visual perspective, and from even a longhand input perspective that are intelligent enough to learn from what you are doing and provide you with the right answers based on how you interact with it. And that's a lot of why Samsung has been spending so much time before simply just throwing yet another voice agent out into the marketplace.
Well, I think we are already in the age of AI. We have a lot of intelligent systems around us everywhere. I mean, if you think 5 years ahead, to 5 years back, to 10 years back, Amazon knows what I want to buy, Netflix knows what I want to watch, my phone knows where I want to go, it knows that the cab will take longer, so I should change my route. So I think we have intelligence all around us. We won't think of it as a spectrum. Things will get smarter and more connected. So now maybe I want to buy something I watched in a movie in Netflix. Right, that's the kind of connections will eventually drive. But we are surrounded by AI everywhere, and it's just going to get better and better and more comprehensive in its ability to understand what the user wants and wants to do, predict the intent, and then make it happen. But I think we're already in it. Right? It's not like it's going to happen. We're in the middle of it right now.
Yeah, I agree. We're in a time now where AI does exist. It is working. It works on rails, though, right? So we don't have a general AI that can what we think of as really conscious. Good example of an AI working on rails is autonomous vehicles, right? So they can deal with a certain set of parameters that they're basically expecting. They're not going off-road. They can't do it at night. They can't do it with things that are wildly different from kind of what their algorithms have been trained to do. But I want to take the opportunity to kind of flip the question a little bit as well. Instead of artificial intelligence, how many people in the audience have heard of intelligence augmentation, IA? Anybody? A little bit? So if you look at the history of AI, there were actually two different factions. There were those who were trying to create AIs that would replace humans, and then there were those who were trying to create technologies that would augment humans and make us better. And the irony is that technologies on both sides of that coin can go either way. So as far as designer intent, you can't necessarily control the ways in which the technology that you develop gets used. But it is a really fundamental difference in terms of the philosophy of what you're designing. Are you designing humans into the loop? Or are you creating systems that fundamentally operate separately from humans without the need for input? And at DAQRI, we really think a lot about intelligence augmentation and helping to create systems that can make us better at decision making, able to predict the impacts of our actions before we take the first step, right? So our brains have evolved to be really good at dealing with near-term threats and near-term opportunities, and we don't do a very good job of predicting very far out and looking at the longer-term impacts of our actions. What if you had a technology that could give you branched logic and say, here's the different paths in front of you, let's look at what the outcomes are, and you can actually see that in real time as you're doing a task or making a decision. Those are kind of the opportunities that we see where we can keep humans in the loop, because you know what? Humans have consciousness, humans have ethics, humans have judgment, and so far we don't have a way to build those aspects into our AIs.
Okay, thank you, Guy. Both Guy and Kumar talked a little bit about the idea of AI in a container. Guy used the term Rails, and Kumar talked about Netflix and Amazon getting AI. Obviously, the information sharing, more information can make AI a little better. And this is a real interesting and thorny point. In the Samsung Arctic video, they showed a futuristic car, and in that video, one of the things the car showed on the dashboard was how many steps you walked today. And I'm looking at that going, I'm not sure I want my car to know how many, why does my car need to know how many steps I walked? Is it gonna, if I didn't walk enough, is it gonna force me to park in the back of the parking lot or something? What is that? And then is it a two-way street? Can I, be in the store wondering what my tire pressure is? Can I pull up my phone and pull that out? So let's talk a little bit about the challenges of information sharing, and are we gonna see, more of that to make AI more powerful, or less of that because of the increased security concerns that are happening right now?
So first, Dave, let me tell you that, yes, Samsung is going to make sure that your car makes sure you walk more.
All right.
No, but seriously.
I already did the bicycle earlier.
The way that we think about this is privacy and security are the two most important aspects of everything that we're talking about here. And as we look 10 years into the future, they will remain the most important aspects of what you're doing. So the idea behind building IoT platforms that allow you to share information in different environments is all, from our perspective, built on an opt-in strategy. Obviously, in an example like that crazy car, it was something that said, if I want to be able to understand how much physical activity I've done in that day in an environment where I spend lots of my time, and anybody who lives in the valley knows you spend tons of time in your vehicle, right? We want to be able to provide that information and that capability. At the same time, we want to make sure that if you choose to opt out of those things, your data, your information is protected. And so that, I think, is never going to go away, and that's going to be on vendors like us, on everybody in this industry, to ensure that we are building the right privacy and security policies into all of our solutions.
I think I agree there. So when it comes to privacy, I think we need to recognize that we are going through a disruptive technology change, right? So people are now getting confronted with new technologies, and then things need to be transparent to them. They need to feel in control. I think that's one of the most important ones. And then we should focus really on, as industry, as leading brands, we have a role to play there. So we need to show them in a step-by-step way also how they benefit from IoT, how they benefit from these technologies, and then help them take that step towards, let's say, an IoT-enabled world where they feel in control, where they don't feel cheated and things like that. So I think as an industry, we have a responsibility there to manage that.
So to know on the blockchain, we've taken a different approach. So why not design out security flaws as opposed to sort of design in security at a later stage? So what we've done is we've put all the logic of organizations as decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs as they're known, and any errors that could be made are hard-coded into logic so they're not made. So humans are left out of the loop completely. The autonomously run organizations that talk to each other, that do all the functions where if humans were to do them, there's a security risk or a liability. So we design out all the security and privacy issues that pop up at a later date. So it's about going back on the stack, decentralizing the stack, and putting that security and logic layer on the stack itself.
I wanted to reframe the question, which is it really about privacy or is it about user design? So in the case of certain information, whether it's current information or predictive information, you have to ask a question, is it being placed in the right contextual context? To me, that's a design question. On the privacy side, one of the things that IoT is actually pushing for is actually decentralization. The fact that the Dropbox and the IBMs and the cloud providers are not holding onto all your data, but rather it is residing on edge and embedded devices on a fog level. Now, how do you then start to ensure through blockchain and other immutable authentication methods to ensure that information is only called upon based on your privacy settings and your preferences, so it knows who to share it with, who's authorized to have that bit of information? That's a piece. Now, one thing I will say is, because I'm not affiliated with any large company, is that you will hear lots of big companies and small companies saying they have the best security solution, but I assure you, I think the problem starts with the people and the policy first. Start with that, and then you can work down and cascade in terms of what the right solutions are.
So we now have a technology that exists that is radically transparent and radically secure, and that is the blockchain. And there are others in a similar vein. And I just want to come back to the point about quantum computing and security that we brought up earlier. You know, people are worried that we're going to have these super powerful, super fast computers that are going to be able to break any strong cryptography that we have today. And I just want to kind of remind everybody, don't panic, because while, yes, it's true that those technologies are going to be able to break the cryptography that we have today, the same technologies are going to be able to build new types of security systems as well.
Okay, we've got time for one last question, and it's a short answer question because of our time. It's actually not a short answer question, but you're going to have to make it a short answer question. The question is, so much of the conversation today is really around connectivity. Just how, you know, is it Wi-Fi, is it Bluetooth, is it Zigbee, is it cellular, Ethernet wire? You know, there's so many options. So much of the show floor is about connectivity. That's today in 2017. What will be the major theme of the show in 5 years if you walk around the exhibit hall? What do you think would be the common thread or major thread? Let's just go down short answers and yeah.
I think security is going to be a big deal at that time, because once you can imagine everything's connected, all the technical hurdles have been solved. The problem is, how do you control something that can be controlled remotely? And how do you ensure that you're the one controlling it when somebody else is not? And if somebody else, how do you recover that control back? And I think that becomes a really big deal once everything is connected and we solve these problems of data transfer and analysis.
We actually have a little more time than I thought, so if you want to go a little more, it's okay.
So I'll elaborate on that fact. I think, I used to have been in the security area for a long time, not recently, but in the past. And one of the toughest things that makes or breaks your business model is how well you can treat your users, legitimate users, to recover from scenarios where they've been compromised. And when all your devices are compromisable because they're connected and somebody can take them over, how do you ensure that you return that control back to the user that actually should have that control? And that's where you can make or break your business model, not only in the cost that it costs you to recover that control back and recover that device, but also for the user, how much time and effort do they have to invest in to get that back? And between these two things, if you don't have a good solution, the customer will look for something better and easier to use and recover in that scenario if that were to happen again.
So I think that because of the speed of innovation today, 5 years is the new decade, and in 5 years things are going to have changed quite a bit, and we'll be talking about synthetic biology and how we're actually building systems and controlling biological systems that can build machines and do computing, and how we're going to be dealing with all of the ethics around that. I think really this is going to come to a point where the way that we manifest and make agreements around the ethical implications of these technologies is going to need to be at the forefront.
I think that from my perspective, in 3 to 5 years, this show's going to shift fundamentally. First off, we're not going to be talking about IoT, the Internet of Things. We're not going to be talking about various devices, various sensors, various capabilities. We're going to be talking about integrated solutions that solve problems for customers, whether it's how you use synthetic biology to help change the lives of people in the world today, whether it's how security becomes an integrated part of how we exchange information and drive our interactions with financial institutions. This is going to become ubiquitous, and this show is going to shift towards a set of conversations that are around integration, that are around customer pain points, and that are around improved value to those end customers rather than look at my widget.
So 3 to 5 years, which is sort of 1 year is 3 years in blockchain, we see a whole shift in humans themselves and where they deploy their talent, whether it's coding, whatever they do. The actual role of humans is going to be starting to be designed out pretty fast, pretty rapid, and what role humans actually play in the blockchain is going to be a fundamental topic. And what you're going to actually start to see is, you've already got examples now, distributed organizations that sit on the blockchain that will start to request their own requirements that then go to rapid fabrication, production and deployment, and that's all done autonomously. So humans are going to start to, the next conversation is, what impact do these technologies have to retrain and re-engineer what kind of lifestyles humans want? So currently we're sort of subservient to technology. Technology is going to take its own path, and we're going to have a more, so if you imagine your money in your pocket, it's pretty dumb. You get a payroll, you get whatever, you know. Within 18 months on the blockchain, we have deep cash, which pretty much decides where it's best spent, what it invests in, when it returns to you. So you're completely isolated from your money. It does all the services for you. You just know the type of lifestyle you pick, what you want. So the choices we make, fundamentally, we're still designing technology around those choices. On the blockchain can make its own choices. That lets the value, so we move from money, from things, to a very, very frictionless value layer. And where humans put their value, where they retrieve their value, and what they do with their value is going to be more of a topic than just things and sensors.
I think on this one I'm more in the same mindset as Ed. I think we talk about the technology, we see the technologies around us, but I think one thing we need to really realize is the consumer adaptation is taking time. We already talk about smart home, but if you look at the general audience, general consumers, they are still on the verge of trying their first connected device, let alone having 2, 3, 5, 10 of them that they can actually use a smart home platform. So what I expect in the coming 5 years, that consumer adaptation will progress more. We will be moving more from the discussion of technologies to more use cases, more segments that are newly opening. We will be discussing about the needs of maybe the late majority or whatever, or the late adapters. And then indeed, I think there will be some kind of a shake around in the industry as well. I think the dominating players will be more clear. The platforms become more clear. Then we will start seeing how companies are actually forming alliances or integrations and so on around those focal points.
I'm going to provide two facets. The first facet is that I think we're probably not doing a very good job as speakers and companies, because the problem is all of you guys are going back and you're experimenting with sensors and IoT. But what we're seeing from a customer perspective is that the large companies are experimenting, but then they get stuck. Once they hit a certain number of pilots, they don't actually go across all the SKUs and start to IoT enable it. Why? Because they never ask a question around the business strategy and the business case. They have no idea what they're doing and why they're doing it for. They are told that there's cost efficiencies and savings and so forth, and maybe top line growth. But it's very unclear. And the internal stakeholders and the champions and the folks that are involved in the corporate levels don't have enough of a knowledge base to be able to make any type of reasonable understanding or rationale whatsoever. So these projects get stuck. I think the vernacular and I think the questions should start with why. Why are you looking at this and why are you trying to do this versus let's look at the plumbing and the different components to make something work together. Second facet is that right now from an industry maturity cycle, we're very much focused on connectivity, and some of us, like IBM and others, are starting to bring us into cognitive science and conversations around predictive and prescriptive data analytics. However, where this is going from an opportunity on the sell side is that it's going to be systems of systems, meaning how does Philip coexist with GE? So let's take a smart city example. The lighting system has to coexist with the building automation system and the security system, the HVC, the traffic lights, the city lights, the transportation. So it takes a systems of systems, and they need to have an abstraction layer that cuts across all these different systems and proprietary technologies, so that in the case of a terrorist act, in the case of North Korea shooting some missiles at us, that you can actually have a coordinated systems of systems response that's automated from a workflow perspective.
Okay, great. So far we've been mostly talking about the technology and the technical ramifications. I want to shift it, and I think this is probably our last question. I want to shift it to social. In the book The Circle, they introduce a camera that's always on, and it makes things safer, makes society safer. We saw a few years ago Tesla had a bad review, and